From the beautiful and massive supernova to the birth of a star, our universe is filled with secrets that are slowly being uncovered, and the launch of NASA's SpaceX Crew-6 mission might be the next big step in exploring the mysteries of space. So what could this mean? On board the International Space Station, a new crew of astronauts is getting ready to spend 6 months together in space. This new team will be performing dozens of science experiments and research while they're above the Earth's orbit as part of ISS Expedition 69. The mission will consist of 2 astronauts, a Russian cosmonaut, and an Emirates astronaut. The 4-person crew will work on a wide range of research projects. For example, they'll study heart muscle tissue in microgravity, as well as test a bioprinter that can print human cells and tissue and look into technology for making medicinal drugs. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering, who are the astronauts making this journey? Well, the team is a collaboration between 3 different space agencies. The 4-man crew includes NASA's Stephen Bowen and Warren Woody Hoberg.
I had, grand plans of growing up and becoming an astronaut, but I never did anything to preclude that either.
I think my first dream was to be a ski patroller.
Sultan Al Nayadi is UAE's astronaut who'll be joining the voyage.
Extra goals in the future,
along with cosmonaut Andrei Faddeev of Russia. Among them, Al-Nayadi will make history by becoming the first Arab to go on a long-term space mission. He'll also be the 4th Arab ever to go into space. Al-Nayadi was able to make the journey thanks to a deal between NASA and Axiom Space. After giving up a spot on a Russian Soyuz rocket for NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei in 2021, the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center chose him to go on this orbital trip. Axiom Space owed a seat on a Falcon 9, which they exchanged for a spot on the Crew-6 mission, which it then gave to MBRSC as part of a different deal. And even though geopolitical tensions are still high, NASA and Russia's space agency Roscosmos came to an agreement. According to the agreement, U.S. astronauts would ride on Soyuz capsules and Russian cosmonauts would ride in a Crew Dragon. All of this sounds so exciting. I literally can't wait to see what the crew will do once in space. And they've got a very busy schedule. Expedition 69 is jam-packed with many different scientific investigations. The crew will perform more than 200 experiments and technology demonstrations. They'll study how materials behave in microgravity and take samples of bacteria from the outside of the space station. One of the biggest studies comes from the National Institutes of Health. They're starting a project called Tissue Chips in Space to study heart muscle tissue in microgravity. The main purpose of this project is to learn more about heart disease. Another big project is the updated bioprinter. It can print human cells and tissues in microgravity and will be put to the test, with the goal of using this technology on Earth one day. The crew will also perform research for student-led projects like Genes in Space. It's an annual competition where students design genetic experiments to test on board the International Space Station. Once Crew-6 gets to the space station, this will make room for some astronauts to return home. Sending the data for analysis is one thing, but if you ask me, the astronauts explaining that data themselves will help us uncover that data better. So I, for one, am very excited for the launch of this spacecraft. However, unfortunately, things aren't looking great for the launch, as it's been delayed twice already. The launch was initially set for Sunday, 26 Feb, but was delayed and rescheduled for early morning on Monday, 27 Feb. This was to ensure the preparedness of SpaceX's crew transportation system. But as we already know, no Falcon 9 rocket took off on Monday morning, as the mission will have to wait some more before taking off. NASA's Crew-6 mission was set to blast off on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Florida's Kennedy Space Center, but the launch was called off less than 2.5 minutes before T0 because of a problem with the ground system. According to NASA commentator Gary Jordan, the delay was following a ground issue with TEA-TEB. It's the ignition fluid that ignites with the oxidizer and allows the engines to burn. Because of this problem, Monday's instantaneous launch window at 1:45 a.m. EST had to be canceled, and the next launch opportunity is Thursday, March 2nd at 12:34 a.m. EST. Honestly, it's like the suspense before the big reveal, because once the spacecraft takes off, exciting times for mankind will follow shortly after. If that's the case, why is the launch taking so long? Well, that's probably because of how this spacecraft operates. Crew-6, or the Dragon Endeavour, will blast off from Launch Pad 39A on a Falcon 9 rocket. It'll travel at a speed of around around 17,500 miles per hour as it carries 4 people toward the ISS. But that's not the interesting part. What is interesting is the fact that most to all of this craft's maneuvers are automatic. These automatic maneuvers will steer Endeavour to the station's Harmony module space-facing port once it's in orbit. All of this will be heavily monitored by the crew and SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne, California. That makes sense considering how the space shuttle operates. And eventually, Endeavour will be in range to dock with its new orbital home. I know I said that most of its maneuvers will be automatic, but that doesn't mean it can't be controlled manually. Even though the spaceship has been built to dock automatically, the crew can take over if it's needed. And when Crew-6 docks at the station, this new team of astronauts will be greeted by the previous Crew mission astronauts, who will voyage back to the coast of Florida a few days after the Crew-6 has docked. After that, it's experimenting time for the new team, and I honestly can't wait to see the results of these great and interesting experiments. Speaking of which, the crew will perform some major experiments that are worth keeping an eye out for, and that's combustion research, microorganisms, and microgravity. Combustion research will take another step forward with the forthcoming Crew-6 mission. Fire's behavior is drastically altered by Earth's gravity, and since there's literally no gravity in space, fire acts in mysterious ways. There'll soon be an experiment called Solid Fuel Ignition and Extinguishment, or SOFI. This experiment will look into the phenomenon of thermally assisted burning in microgravity. Combustion is affected by several variables that will be investigated in this study. The result could help scientists figure out how flammable materials can be used in future space missions, therefore reducing the risks of fire in space. Speaking of microgravity, the team will also test tissue chips in microgravity. Tissue chips are little devices used to mimic the performance of real human organs. Testing them in the microgravity environment of the ISS will help the crew figure out the potential changes. And on the topic of biology, Crew-6 will also look for microorganisms, with the goal of determining how common microorganisms are in space. The ISS External Microorganisms Inquiry entails collecting samples from the surrounding area during spacewalks. The discovery of microbes that can survive in harsh environments like those in space could be useful on Earth. Learning about the habits and growth of these organisms in outer space could lead to breakthroughs in many medical domains. All these experiments are exciting in their own rights. However, the thing that's most intriguing is the fact that they'll be testing industrial technology in space. Yep, you heard that right. We'll be testing Earth's industrial technology in space now. Space travel has always been viewed as humanity's final chance to unlock the secrets of the universe. It's also been a great place to develop and test industrial technology for use on Earth, and the results of these new tests will change how we look at space exploration forever. The crew will be testing materials and how they react in the extreme conditions of space, and everything from electronics to robotics to energy. This is truly a great time to be alive, seeing all these advancements in space and technology. But for now, that's all for the Crew-6 mission.